Hello, everybody out there. Today we're going to be talking about how settlement in a divorce isn't necessarily easier, but how it can be better. So if you're ready for episode 177, let's get started.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Doreen, how are you?
Well, happy Saturday to you. I'm good.
It's not only a happy Saturday, but look at the weather outside. It's so beautiful outside.
It's winter in Florida, South Florida, in Boca Raton. We have a nice day planned. We're going to go take my mom to see a Frank Sinatra tribute and to a nice little meal.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be nice, and she loves Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, well, who doesn't?
Who doesn't, right?
And then last night was incredible with the Funny Girl, the play,
At
but the Kravis Center.
Kravis Center up in Palm Beach. It always amazes me the talent that surrounds us in this world.
The singing that came out of their mouths, both the head girl and the head guy, boy, wow, they were so...
The head girl and the head guy.
Well, the lead. Let me use the right terminology. The lead in the play.
Yeah.
They were amazing.
I'm not good at all at any of that, singing and dancing and acting and all the things, but you look at these, the talent, and I was in awe that someone can be that talented with so many different arts.
I've seen you dance before. You're pretty talented.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think the kids might beg to differ. It's like one of that Seinfeld episode with Elaine. Do you remember that one when she's dancing? It's like, oh my gosh.
Right. Speaking of the kids, how's everybody? They're doing good.
You know what? Amanda, I tried to call earlier and I got shut down on that one.
Oh boy.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I got sent to voicemail, but I'm sure she's busy.
Okay.
Megan is on her way to Sarasota for a wedding. Do you remember her roommate first year?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
She's getting married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to her high school sweetheart.
Everybody's getting older but us.
Yeah, and then Samantha, she's in Charleston settling in and, just doing amazing things, working with me, doing marketing, and just so I'm so impressed. And then
Spencer's here in Boca Raton.
Is here in Boca, so
staying local.
We're all doing good.
Yeah.
I wanted to start the episode. I know we're going to talk about settlement in divorces, family law cases, and how settlement doesn't necessarily mean easier than going to trial. And I want to dive into that because I think a lot of people don't really understand that maybe as well as they should. And I think it's important to know it if you're going through divorce or family case, because you want to be able to know what's happening in your case and if your lawyer is working on settlement.
Yeah. Well, when we first talked about the subject matter, I too was a little, wow, it's not easier? I thought it was easier, but when you explained it, I was like, aha, now I understand why it's not easier.
It can be, but I want to explain the difference. But before we start, I want to talk about something personal this week and how I think our coaching and being life coaches is relevant to what I experienced. I started the beginning of the week with something negative. I'm not going to get into the details, but something business related that was relatively negative. And so when things happen to us that are negative, many times it's not in our control, or maybe it is somewhat in our control, but we aren't aware of it. Okay. So the beginning of my week started off that way. And you know what I'm talking about.
Sure, of course I do.
I don't need to share it
Right.
to the world. But then what I realized at the end of the week is that things were really good. So my Monday versus my Friday was so much different in just my thoughts that create our feelings and our emotions. So my negative emotions from Monday completely changed by Friday. So I thought it was important to let our listeners know that just kind of hold on and take a deep breath. We're going to be thrown negative things. It's just part of life.
And
right?
that's everybody.
That's what I'm
Everybody,
saying.
it's all 50-50.
Right?
And I think that everybody is, I like the listeners to know that even the coach goes through negative times
Of
and negative
course.
thoughts, and how we deal with that is very, very controllable at times.
Yeah, but you love, my love, to just jump into the conclusions, and I get it.
Well, no.
But I generally want to just take a moment to understand the feeling behind it, and that it's not so easy. Yes, it's true. We can control our thoughts, and we can work on our thoughts, but it's not easy.
It's not easy.
Even for someone like myself who understands thought work.
And that's the point I was making, that
Right.
everybody goes through, and it's not easy.
No, it's not. So it was just an interesting experience that I thought I would share. You
Right.
know, that the week started off a certain way, very negative, and I got a little caught up in it. I was able to catch myself and not get into the drama, because I don't think there's a lot of good to rehash and to blame and to come up with excuses. I just don't see the point of it. I think that when you're dealing with something negative, like our listeners going through divorce or a family case issue, there's this tendency sometimes to just get stuck in the negative. And it's hard to get out of it. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work. But even if you don't do a lot of the thought work, which we encourage you to do, which is recognizing the circumstance, the fact that happened, and then your thought around it and changing your thought, and we talk a lot about that, is that in time, things do change. For the most part. I know that there are some things in life that don't. A terminal illness, an accident, some things just don't change. Maybe your husband or your wife told you they want a divorce and they're gonna go down that road, that maybe won't change. But life generally does give us both good and bad. So just hold on tight. You'll get there, you'll be okay, and that's it. I just thought I would
I
share
think the
that.
question I was going to ask was, when you were going through your negative time in that week, was it something that you realized and worked on your thoughts?
Yeah.
Or did the positive just come all of a sudden and you recognized the positive thoughts? Or did you say, I need to work on these negative thoughts to create positive?
I think it's a combination. And I don't think it's one thing. You can work, on your thought work, which means, there's a circumstance beyond your control, something happens, and then you have a thought about it. And we have, how many thoughts a day?
Almost
60,000?
60,000.
That's what we've heard from the experts in the
Yes.
Google world, right? And so most of your thoughts just come very matter of fact. And so thought work is about understanding that you have a thought about a circumstance, and that thought is going to drive an emotion, a feeling, which can be very negative, which was what I was dealing with on Monday. And then your action line and your results is what stems from that. So I was able to catch my thought,
Awareness.
right? Still live in the negative part of it. The negative emotion doesn't go away. The sadness, the disappointment, the resentment, the anger, all of the things, the regret, all of these things I felt. But then my action line was not to act out. My action line was to not get into that spiral of blame and casting, back and forths and all the things. So that was the thought work, and it's hard.
Yes.
The time, which is just time, it happens right now, we're spending time together and time is passing, is the part that made it also better, because other things happened, and they were good things and great things, and recognitions that maybe what happened that was negative on Monday was meant to be. And there's good in both, right? And so that's it. But I want to talk, did you have anything more to say?
No, I
about
was just
that?
saying, it's very interesting. I think that it's great that the listeners hear that we too are human,
Of
and we
course.
experience thoughts, we're aware of them, and we can work on them. and we end up being in a place where we want to be. And I think that's a great lesson for the listeners.
So let's talk about settlement in a divorce or a family case, but this mostly is about divorces. So I'm very, as you know, I'm board certified as a trial lawyer, which means I've done a lot of trials. I've been practicing 31 years now, and only in family law, right? So mostly divorces and things of this nature. So going to trial is a lot. It's a lot on you as a listener if you're going through divorce. It's a lot on your pocketbook. Emotionally, it's a lot. And it's a lot to put in the hands of a judge. In Florida, a judge decides your issues and makes rulings, right? So decides who's going to get the house, what the distribution of the assets looks like, what the custody arrangements are going to be, what the alimony support is going to be, and all the things. If you can't decide the issues. Now, at least in my experience, okay, and in South Florida, in Palm Beach County and the surrounding counties that I practice in Florida, things have changed a lot over the 30 years. The court systems, I think throughout the entire country, but I can speak from experience here, are really overworked. They've cut budgets, they've cut, as a result, employees. So judges are handling so much more themselves than they used to handle with help. I remember back in the day, you went to trial, you went to a hearing, there was a clerk in the courtroom that was assisting the judge.
Right.
Handling exhibits, things of this nature. The judges do this themselves now in our divisions. That's a lot.
It's a lot of work.
They have, some of these judges can have 1,000 cases. 1,000 cases. There was a chief judge from Palm Beach County that gave a speech at, you were there.
Yes.
You were there.
I was there at the breakfast.
Do you remember
The
his
luncheon.
name? I'm so horrible that I don't remember. Anyhow, I'll put it in the show notes. I'll make sure that I do that because shout out to him, but he told you, I didn't make it to this Palm Beach, South Palm Beach County Bar Association luncheon.
Right.
I usually go to all of them, and I had a conflict that day with a case, but you were there.
I went.
And what did he say?
He was saying that the courts are so backed up
Yeah,
that a lot of cases they don't even get to,
I know.
and
Just takes time.
and if yours does get heard, it's usually they try to process it through as quick as possible.
Yeah, so what happens is back in the day when I used to get a lot of time, all the time you needed in a trial or a hearing, nowadays you're crunched in.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. So that, coupled with the fact that it's 95, and these are averages, okay? 95% of family law cases settle, right? Don't hold me 100% to that number, but it's somewhere estimated around that. I just had one of my associate lawyers check into that for me to verify. She told me that the numbers are still accurate. So
Well, even if it's in the 90s, it's a high percentage.
it's a high percentage
It's a
rate.
high percentage.
Right? So I always say, you're gonna likely settle your case. If you were in Las Vegas and you had a 95% chance of winning, we would all make a lot of money, right?
Vegas wouldn't let you in.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. The odds would be against the house, as they say. So we have a really good chance of settling a case. Now, why do I say that settling a case can be more difficult and challenging than trying a case? Because it's hard work. Now, not every case. So you might have a simple case that it can be settled relatively quickly, and I encourage you to do that. Get it over with, get it done, sign off, make sure everything is done to protect you, of course, legally sound, talk to a lawyer, all the things, get it done. But I'm talking about the average case where there are some issues involved, okay, a divorce case. There are challenges. There's some wealth, there's some incomes to figure out, there might be some custody issues going on, there's some support challenges, all the things. Now, these cases, and some of them can be even more complex in issues. When you get into settlement mode, the first thing you need to know is what are you entitled to as a matter of law? So what I think that the listeners should know is that your lawyer, and if you're representing yourself, it would be yourself, but I do not recommend it. If you can afford a lawyer, even if it's on limited basis, what we call limited representation, please have representation. Because I deal with so many people that go through a divorce, they do it themselves and they end up with really, you know what kind of agreements, an S word. Can I say that word?
Yes, you can.
Shitty agreements.
Yeah.
They can't be enforced. The terminology is all over the place. There's no understanding for the court when the court looks at the contract to say this is what this person's supposed to do by then. So it's really important that you assure that your agreement is solid, legally sound.
What's that saying? If you represent yourself, you have a fool for a lawyer?
No, fool for a client.
Fool for a client?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
But
kind of
it's,
the same thing.
Yeah.
Same
But-
person.
Yeah, but I don't know. Sometimes you just can't afford it and you do the best you can, but, you know, I'm just making the statement or the advice. But what I'm saying is that settlement negotiations take a lot of work. They take understanding all the issues, understanding what your client is entitled to, which means doing a lot of discovery. Discovery is obtaining the records and understanding, you know, the assets, the marital asset and the estates, and then, you know, understanding the law, understanding what the incomes look like, understanding what the parenting plan should be, all the things. So the first thing is there's a lot of investigating from the lawyer's perspective on knowing the case so that you can give advice. And quite frankly, if you don't do your job as a lawyer to do that, and your client hasn't waived the right, meaning some clients tell you, I don't want to do all this work, I don't want to do all this discovery, I'm just going to accept a number, which I highly advise against. And if you're a lawyer, make sure you get your CYA in place on that, because you don't want to be sued because you didn't do your work and your client told you not to. Right? Understand any questions?
Definitely.
Right?
No,
So
I get that part.
you got to make sure that you understand the case. Then you got to understand the personalities, right?
Yeah.
You got to understand who is your client. What are their pressure points? When you start negotiating, you got to work hard at trying to get them out of the emotional mind and into the business mind, the business of divorce.
Mm-hmm.
What do the numbers say? What's going to happen in a courtroom? How much is it going to cost you to get there? And is it worth it? I call it cost-benefit analysis, right? Now, when you're dealing with the other side, you have to know the other side's personality. Who are you talking to? Is it the lawyer on your spouse's side, on the other side, that's doing most of the heavy lift? In other words, is your spouse going to just listen to the attorney as opposed to having a lot of opinions? Are you dealing with a narcissist? Are you dealing with somebody that's just confused and has challenges understanding the issues? You have to understand your case, because when you settle a case, it's a lot of negotiations, and if you don't understand as a lawyer how the art of negotiation works and who your players are, you're going to be at a disadvantage.
Right.
There are times when you're going through a settlement negotiation that you might go to a mediation and it fails.
Isn't mediation required in most cases?
It is, at least in Palm Beach County and most of the surrounding counties that we deal with, and I think throughout the country most likely. Mediation is required at various stages, and the judges and the rules will require it. So you will go most likely to a mediation. Now, if your mediation fails, please don't think that's the end of settling your case. It's not. And so many times people just throw their hands up and say, well, we didn't settle at mediation, we're going to trial. No. You learned hopefully a lot at mediation. You learned about the issues, you learned the pressure points. Now go back to the drawing board with your lawyer, sit down and say, okay, now what? Are we going to trial? How much is it going to cost me? What are my chances of winning? And put a price on all of this. Versus, should I be negotiating something, right? Is it going to cost me less to give in a little bit? That doesn't feel good to most people. They don't want to give in. But does it cost less to just say, let me capitulate to that issue because it's going to cost more, and then it's in the hands of the judge?
Explain a little bit what you mean by cost benefit and
Yeah.
how you handle a lot of your cases based on that.
Yeah, so, and I would hope that your lawyers, audience are doing this with you, but it generally means that you are looking at the issues in the case. You've identified the issues. Let's just take some issues. Who's gonna get the house? Okay, let's say we have an argument on that. Both parties want the house, both parties can afford to manage the expenses by themselves. There's some other factors in Florida that we would have to consider. And they're arguing, they're fighting, they don't have an agreement on who's gonna get the house, right? Well, what you need to know is the cost benefit of that is, what are your chances if you take that issue to trial of winning that issue? Do you have a better case than the other side has? Your lawyer should know the answer to that. What is your evidence? Who's gonna testify? What are the documents? Who do you need to bring in to support the issues and the argument of your case? Then you gotta look at the other side. What are they gonna present? How much is it gonna cost you to go there, to go to trial? So the cost benefit is looking at all those things, really equating dollar amounts to them, and then deciding, am I gonna take this chance? Now, let's presume that with my example, they're arguing over who's gonna get the house. Both parties have a very good shot. It's like, they both have good factors, they both have good evidence. Do you take that case to trial, right? Or do you somehow try to resolve that and maybe capitulate, right? Giving the house to the other side to get something greater from another asset. Is it worth it? And you really just have to do the cost benefit.
Gotcha.
You understand? So,
Yeah, makes sense. Now, either way, whether you're going to trial or you're working on settlement, you're doing your discovery, you're doing everything that you have to do in both cases, right?
yeah, I mean, look, if you're preparing a case for trial, it's very different at that point. But you should be, as a good lawyer, and clients be aware of this with your lawyers, you should be preparing your evidence in your case as you're working on the case. So you should know and develop your evidence as you're going, because you're presenting the evidence not only in trial,
Mhm.
right? Potentially, if you have to go there. Again, 5% chance, right?
Right?
But you're also trying to convince the other side when you settle.
I guess that's another question of mine. Because settlement isn't easier,
No.
do you have lawyers that typically would rather go to court?
Yes, 100%. 100%, they don't want to deal respectfully. Not all lawyers, there are some really great lawyers out there. But know if your lawyer settles their cases more often than not. Ask them the questions. How many cases last year, if you want to take a quantified time, did you go to trial on? How many cases did you have? How many cases did you settle? And how many cases did you go to trial on? And know the answer, because if you have a 95% average statistics of settling and your lawyer is not in that 95 percentile, it should be a red flag, something's going on. Now, it's fair to say though, there are some lawyers that are known to be trial lawyers in divorces. That's what they do. They are known to do that. And there are some lawyers that that's all they want to do. They come in to try a case. They are not interested in settling cases. I believe that a great lawyer as a divorce lawyer looks at both. You're ready to litigate, but you're pursuing settlement. You're doing both. You're doing both. And if you're doing your job well, you should be able to settle your case. You know, I remember when I was a younger lawyer thinking it was almost a weakness to settle a case. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, it
the
makes
good
sense.
lawyers were the ones that went to trial. No. Maybe back in the day, that might have been the case.
Or that might have been exciting to you. My first trial, I get to go to trial.
It's, you know, it's a skill that you learn and you develop, and being a trial lawyer is challenging. It's difficult. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes experience. You know, I'm a board certified marital and family lawyer. I have to have experience because I have to take an exam and show the bar, that I've done X amount of trials and all the things. So I have that. But as the system has changed, meaning the court system has lost funding, the judges are overworked, you can't get into the courtroom like the chief judge said. You're rushed through a trial. Something that should take 3 days, you have to put on in a day. I mean, it's really an impossibility. It's become more important to try to settle your case. But there are situations, see, the other side has to know you're ready to litigate if you need to.
Yeah,
They
put
need
on
to-
that face.
It's not just a face, it's reality.
Wow.
It's reality. They have to know that this particular case, this particular issue, I'm gonna go to trial if we can't settle it. Because they have to understand that that's a true threat many times to negotiate.
Right.
And that's so when you're working with your divorce attorney, know the issues specifically. Break them down. Maybe there's 5 issues in the bigger scheme, and I could talk about them. There's a parenting plan that has custody and shared parental responsibility. This is all Florida. Equitable distribution of the assets and the liabilities, who's gonna get what. In Florida, there's a presumption starting with a 50-50 split. There's all kinds of issues that stem from that, valuation issues and problems, and who wants which asset and what, and identifying it. Incomes for the purposes of support, that can become a huge issue. Fees and costs can become a huge issue. So you have to know your issues, and then you have to know your chances of prevailing, and you have to know your case, and then capitulate the ones that you can't win. That's where you settle, and the ones that you can win, do the cost benefit. But it's not easier.
Right.
But here's why it's really good.
That's what I was going to ask. I bet the next question I had was about that. But I was going to say, when you're dealing with children, your emotions, and the overall maybe future relationships that you're going to have with your ex, if you're sharing children, there has to be a benefit to that when you're dealing with settlement versus trial.
Yeah, let me first say this, because I think it's really important. If you have a case that involves a serious issue and concern regarding the co-parent, and you have to take that issue to trial to protect your child, and you have a good case for that, meaning you've talked to your lawyer and there's real concern there, and your lawyer can prove your case, I don't know that you can't put a price on protecting your child. Let me just say that first. But in most situations, we're not gonna fight over, my ex wants to feed him fast food, and I am a person who's a vegan, and we're gonna fight about that. The court could care less. The court could care less what you feed your child, as long as you're feeding your child. Look, most of the courts, because they're so overworked, they don't have the same level of not concern, that's a wrong word, of ability to micromanage a case and say, we're gonna order the child to eat this kind of food only. They wouldn't do that. Okay, first of all, it would be reversed if it went on appeal, but they just don't have the ability to do that. And also, you want to keep in mind that these judges, they see a lot of bad stuff, right? But to answer your question, being in litigation only fuels separation between parents. There's no way, and it hurts the child.
Right.
Even if you try your best to keep everything away from the child, meaning you don't share the litigation, you don't leave papers around, you don't talk about the issues, even if the child is in the house because they might overhear you, all the things, they still see you stressed out, and they still know that this case is not settled.
Right.
So it does, I think it hurts co-parenting, for sure.
It definitely does. And your own emotions as well.
Absolutely.
When you're going in there fighting with your hands up, and he said, she said, and I'm going to do this, and they're going to do that. It brings up that fight mentality versus flight.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about some of the benefits of settling your case. Well, first of all, you won't have the expense of trial, because remember I said it was harder. I didn't say it was as expensive, but it can be pricey to settle because you're back and forth negotiating, and that takes time. And I just settled a case recently, and I don't even know how many drafts of terms in the agreement we went through.
Well, if you said it could be pricey to settle, but if you're working on settlement, and then you end up going to trial, it is gonna cost you more because now you have a trial on top of that.
Trial's expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't put any way around it. Going to trial is just expensive. You figure if you're 8 hours in trial and there's preparation of maybe, 40 hours between your team and yourself and, all the things that have to happen to get a trial ready, do the math. I mean, I charge $5.50 an hour. My team charges anywhere from, let's say, 150 depending, up to, my rate. And there's rates in between based on experience and position, all the things. Many times you need a forensic accountant involved. Most of my cases, if I go to trial, they're gonna have a forensic accountant. So you've got a lot of expense. The other thing is the time issue that we talked about. You're gonna have to deal with the fact that most likely you're gonna have limited time to present your case. So that's always a lot of pressure on people. And the cost we spoke about, the emotional cost of being in trial, it's not easy. We do it as trial lawyers, so we're used to it, but let me tell you, it's still pressure. I don't care how many trials I've done, I still feel butterflies when I go into a courtroom and I'm trying a case. It's natural to feel that way, right? You wanna do a great job, an exceptional job for your client.
Don't forget the lawyer's family when they're on trial mode. It's tough on the attorney's family as well.
Oh my gosh.
Putting you in trial mode is like.
Sam, the girl's ex, my ex-husband, the girl's dad that we talk about, he's gonna be in trial this coming week. I heard this from Samantha. She is flying in because she works for me and she's able to work remotely. She's flying in to take care of what's his name? Khan, the dog, because Sam is gonna be literally staying at a hotel because he needs to concentrate and be ready for trial, and that's like, those are grueling days.
And I remember you in trial mode as well. I mean, now again, you're mostly into settlement, but I remember those days. That's why I thought of it.
Yeah.
How rough it is on the attorneys' families as well.
Yeah, let's also quickly, because we're, going on over 30 minutes. And
Okay.
I'm sure people want to get on with their days and everything.
Sure.
But the other thing is, when you settle your case, you're saving trial, you're co-parenting, hopefully resolving and starting to heal. But one of the greatest things is you can be creative in a settlement negotiation. Judges cannot. They have laws, statutes, and case law, and they must follow the law. So they cannot be creative. Creative for the purposes of saving taxes. Creative in how they're going to distribute assets and liabilities. Creative in what they're going to do. Remember the couple I gave as an example, about both wanted the house?
Yes.
The judge is either gonna give it to one or the other, and if
Or make them sell it.
or make them sell it if there is a pleading called for a partition to sell the house. So one person's gonna get the house, let's assume one's not, or they're gonna sell it. You can be creative. Maybe there's some period of time where one party's gonna stay in the house for a period of time.
Yeah.
I've had situations where co-parents who both want to stay in the house for the child's best interests, because of schooling and things like this, they don't want to uproot the child, they move in and out of the house.
Mm-hmm. Or I don't know if
They
you've
call
ever
it nesting.
you have a case where you let the child and the mother stay in the house until they graduate high school. Maybe then they'll get 60% of the house when they move out.
And the judges
It's
just
creative,
don't
just
have the
being creative.
ability to be creative. So there's so many reasons to settle. And but like you started it off with, it doesn't mean it's easier. It can be for those easy cases, for sure. But for the average case where there's some issues, just do it because it's the right thing. Do it because you're gonna be creative. Do it because you don't wanna be in trial. Do it because you wanna have a better relationship with your co-parent. Do it because it's better for your child. Do it because it's better for you.
And nothing worthwhile is ever easy.
That's true, isn't it?
All right. Well, we'll be seeing you next week.
Yeah, for sure.
Have an amazing day. We're going to go out and enjoy.
What's next week?
What's next week? Valentine's Day.
Is it? No, it's in a few weeks.
Well, that's when the next episode will be.
Oh, okay. Maybe we should talk about Valentine's Day.
Okay.
I think that would be an interesting subject.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, till then,
Bye,
bye-bye.
everybody. Have a good one.
Don't forget to follow us on social media for more empowering content, tips, and inspiration to help you thrive after divorce. And if you're ready to take the next step in your journey, don't miss out on our free 30-minute coaching session. It's a great opportunity to get personalized guidance and support for wherever you are in your divorce journey. Just visit the link in our description to book your appointment.